You're now watching Qnews. We begin tonight's bulletin with the latest in Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
Powerful Israeli airstrikes have hit Beirut's southern suburbs, sending thick plumes of smoke into the air. Lebanese media reported that the occupation forces launched multiple airstrikes across southern Lebanon and the Beqa Valley, including Yatir, Bint Jbeil and Tyre towns, causing significant damage. Earlier, Israeli occupation forces have issued an evacuation order to residents in Beirut's southern suburbs, especially in Hara Tahrik, Layliki and Burj al-Barajna. The occupation army's Arabic language spokesperson, Avice Adra'i, has shared a map with evacuation instructions, warning of an impending airstrike on areas claimed to be Hezbollah facilities. Adra'i told residents to move at least 500 meters away from these locations to ensure their safety and that of their families. Caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati has convened a cabinet session at the Grand Serial attended by key ministers including Deputy Prime Minister Saada Al-Shami along with the Ministers of Education, Finance, Interior, Health, Environment and others. The cabinet confirmed financial provisions for recruiting 1,500 additional army personnel, while Minister of Education Abbas Halabi deferred a decision on school operations for further assessment. The Lebanese caretaker Foreign Minister Abdullah Abu Habib has met with Algeria's ambassador to Lebanon as part of Lebanon's diplomatic push within the UN Security Council to address ongoing Israeli attacks. During the meeting, Abu Habib urged Algeria, a non-permanent Security Council member and Lebanon's ally, to help prevent Israeli threats to archaeological sites in Baalbek and Tyre amid nearby airstrikes. He reaffirmed Lebanon's commitment to balanced implementation of Security Council Resolution 1701 and expressed readiness to strengthen the Lebanese army's presence south of the Litani River to extend state authority in the region. Fires have erupted and thick clouds of black smoke are blowing into the sky over northern Israel following rocket fire from Lebanon. Israeli occupation forces said that 50 rockets crossed from Lebanon in a barrage that was partly intercepted, and that there were several impacts on the ground, including a rocket hitting a storage site. For the past few days, Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon have decreased, but a deadly strike on Al-Jia and an attack in Barja have raised tensions as casualties and Hezbollah operations are continuing to escalate.
For the last few days, although airstrikes continued to be launched across Lebanon, citizens reported a decrease in Israeli aggression, especially in Beirut, up until the 5th of November, where an airstrike hit the Lebanese village of Jia, killing 1 and injuring 20 others. An airstrike on Barja targeted an apartment that Israelis claim holds a Hezbollah financial official, Abdullah Ibrahim. This airstrike was near a school that is currently holding around 600 displaced individuals. This airstrike caused the deaths of over 25 civilians and 20 injuries. According to the Lebanese Ministry of Health, the death toll has surpassed 3,000 casualties, with more than 13,000 injured. The Beqa region in Lebanon has been witnessing many airstrikes recently, including today's strike on the town of Al Ain in northern Beqa, causing the death of 7 individuals and the injury of 2 others. Hezbollah announced today that it launched a series of advanced rockets targeting the Sirfin military base near Ben Gurion Airport, south of Tel Aviv. The base used for military training was hit as part of Hezbollah's ongoing operations. Israeli ground operations are witnessing developments as well, as Israel has sent around 50,000 soldiers into southern Lebanon. However, despite this large deployment, reports suggest that Israeli forces have not been able to gain control over important villages near the border due to heavy resistance from Hezbollah fighters.
For more analysis, we go to our newsroom with Mona Al-Misalhi. Over to you, Mona.
Thank you so much, Karim. And joining us to discuss the latest updates from Beirut, we're joined by Marina Radwan, writer and political researcher. Thank you so much for being with us.
Good evening for you and your audience. Hello.
Thank you so much for being on Qnews. And what are the broader regional implications of the tensions between Lebanon and Israel?
Yeah. Of course, there are major regional implications as a result of the war between Lebanon and Israel. Since as Israel says that they are fighting Hezbollah as a branch of Iran, as Israel says, and this is what is happening also in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, etc. So what we can see now that till now Hezbollah linked the situation in Lebanon with the situation in Gaza. So the country or the regional implications increased, but as the war between Lebanon and Israel, or Hezbollah and Israel, increasing.
Could, from your point of view, Mrs. Marina, could this escalation between Lebanon and Israel be seen as a direct consequences of the larger conflict, or do you believe it is part of a kind of separate strategic dynamic between both countries?
Can you repeat, please?
Yes. So again, if I may ask you, how could this escalation between Lebanon and Israel be seen as a direct consequences of the larger conflict, or do you believe it is just part of a separate strategic dynamic between both countries?
You are asking.
I'm asking about if it is a kind of internal bilateral conflict, or is it a certain dynamic, or will have a certain dynamic on these strategies between both countries?
Yes. Israel says also says that this war is they are fighting Hezbollah, not Lebanon, not the state of Lebanon, or the Lebanese people. But I couldn't. Okay, but of course, guys, I'm sorry that there is problem, sound or technical problem. Hello?
Yes. Right. That was Mrs. Marina Radwan, writer and political researcher from Beirut. I guess that takes us to Karim. Karim.
Thank you very much, Mona. Now, new Hezbollah Secretary General Naim Qassem has said that Netanyahu uses war to change the Middle East and occupy Lebanon. The Secretary General stated that Lebanon has been engaged in an aggressive war with Israel for over a month, adding that they had anticipated the conflict and were prepared for it. Now, the Lebanese Health Ministry has reported dozens of casualties from overnight Israeli airstrikes in central and southern Lebanon. The ministry said that Israeli warplanes struck a building in Barja town in central Lebanon, killing at least 30 people and injuring 14 others. The ministry anticipates that the death toll will surge as many remain trapped under the rubble. The death toll from Israeli attacks on Lebanon since October 8, 2023 had reached 3,013, with injuries rising to 13,553, and that's according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. And according to Lebanese media reports on Tuesday, the Israeli military launched airstrikes across various areas of Lebanon, resulting in at least dozens of casualties. The Israeli attacks also killed 5 people near the Baalbek region in the Bekaa Valley in eastern Lebanon, including 2 who died in a car blown up by the Israeli army. A rocket barrage from Lebanon has triggered rocket sirens across central Israel, including Tel Aviv. White puffs of smoke were seen in the sky when Israel's air defense system intercepted the rockets ahead. The Israeli Occupation Army said that approximately 10 projectiles were identified crossing into Israel from Lebanon, adding that some of the projectiles were intercepted. Israeli media has reported that a large rocket barrage it was launched from Lebanon, and according to reports, one of the rockets fired hit Ben Gurion Airport in Lod, central Tel Aviv. Israeli media also said that flights were halted at the airport following the rocket strike. The Israeli occupation forces said it detected some 10 rockets launched from Lebanon towards central and northern areas, some of which were intercepted. And now to the latest developments in Gaza. Hundreds of protesters have gathered in occupied Jerusalem after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu dismissed the Israeli Defense Minister. Protest organizations called on protesters to gather in Jerusalem near the Knesset following a mass protest in Tel Aviv yesterday. Israeli media reported that Democrat Party Chairman Yair Golan and Knesset members Gilad Karev and Naama Lazimi are among the protesters. At least 10 Palestinians, including children, have been killed in an Israeli airstrike in Gaza. The Israeli Occupation Army laid siege to northern Gaza last month. More than 1,800 people have been killed since then, according to Palestinian health authorities. Food and other aid are severely limited. More than 100 patients, including children suffering from trauma injuries and chronic diseases, have prepared to evacuate from Gaza in a rare transfer out of the war-ravaged enclave. The patients will travel in a large convoy to the UAE, and then a portion will travel to Romania. The Palestinian death toll from ongoing Israeli attacks in Gaza had risen to 43,391, Gaza-based health authorities had said before. In the past 24 hours, Israeli military operations in Gaza killed 17 people and wounded 86 others, bringing the total number of injuries to 102,347. The Israeli occupation forces have continued to storm the city of Jenin and its camps, destroying the infrastructure and citizens' properties. Local sources said that a large number of Israeli military vehicles stormed the city, raided and ransacked a number of citizens' homes, while military reinforcement arrived, accompanied by a military bulldozer from Al-Jalame checkpoint to the vicinity of Jenin camp. The occupation bulldozer began destroying and razing the streets near the UNRWA school in Jenin camp and its entrance. They also bulldozed citizens' properties there. Israeli opposition leaders have stepped up their rhetoric against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his government, calling him unfit and illegitimate to serve. 4 opposition party leaders held a news conference at Israel's parliament a day after Netanyahu sacked the country's defense minister Yoav Gallant. Leader of the opposition Yair Lapid stated that firing a defense minister in the midst of a war was an act of madness. The Palestinian Minister of Health, Abu Ramadan, has announced the conclusion of the emergency polio vaccination campaign in the Gaza Governorate. The number of vaccinated children on the 4th day of the campaign in Gaza City reached 297 children, while the total number of vaccinated children is 105,558 children. He noted that the total number of vaccinated children in the second round in the Strip reached 556,774, all of whom are children under the age of 10 years, with a coverage rate of 94%. Moving on to the latest developments in the U.S. election following the victory of Donald Trump.
We can fix every single problem our country faces and lead America, and indeed the whole world. USA! This is a magnificent victory for the American people. Promises made, promises kept. We're going to keep our promises. Nothing will stop me from keeping my word to you, the people. We will make America safe, strong, prosperous, powerful, and free again.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump has won the 2024 presidential election, according to a race called by the Associated Press. Trump won the key states of Wisconsin and Pennsylvania with a combined 29 electoral votes to clinch the 270 necessary to win the presidency. As of 5:34 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, Trump had 277 electoral votes in total. Trump declared that he has won a magnificent victory for the American people as he sealed his return to the White House as the 47th President of the United States of America.
Frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like it.
And Republicans have won control of the Senate, retaking the chamber for the first time in 4 years. This gives the Republican Party a major power center in Washington and a lead role in confirming the next president's cabinet, as well as any Supreme Court justice if there is a vacancy. Control over the House of Representatives remains uncertain. However, Republicans have made early gains in their effort to retain control. Commenting on Donald Trump's presidential victory, China has stated that it would collaborate with the U.S. based on mutual respect. A foreign ministry spokesperson in Beijing stated that China's policy towards the U.S. remains consistent, even in the event of Donald Trump returning to the Oval Office. When asked how his potential return would affect U.S.-China relations, she also emphasized that China would continue to approach the U.S.-China relations based on the principles of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence and win-win cooperation. Strategists have said that Beijing was bracing for bitter superpower rivalry over trade, technology and security issues. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has said in a statement that the UN is ready to work constructively with Donald Trump's administration after the Republicans' US election victory. Guterres said he commends the people of the US for their active participation in the democratic process. He added that the UN stands ready to work constructively with the incoming administration to address the dramatic challenges that the world is facing. Kirill Dmitriev, the head of the Russian Sovereign Wealth Fund, suggested that a Donald Trump victory in the US presidential election could present an opportunity to rebuild relations between Russia and the US. Dmitriev, a former Goldman Sachs banker with prior contacts within the Trump team, indicated that the result could pave the way for a reset in bilateral ties. In addition to that, the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov acknowledged that relations with the US had reached a historic low, but expressed openness to dialogue if Trump returns to power. South Korea's trade minister has suggested that domestic companies may increase investments in the US if the next administration raises tariffs. His comments came shortly after Donald Trump declared victory. Trade Minister stated that higher tariffs could prompt companies to consider boosting direct investments and expand local production in the US. He noted that the ongoing investments might accelerate, particularly among small and medium-sized parts manufacturers, potentially leading to an increase in US-bound exports. He also added that in recent years, South Korean companies have focused their investments in the US on automobile production, especially electric vehicles.
You're going to say you've done a terrible job, you're grossly incompetent, we're not going to take it anymore, Kamala, you're fired.
Supporters of Donald Trump have gathered outside Trump Tower in Manhattan, New York to celebrate the projected election victory. Trump is ahead of Democratic candidate and Vice President Kamala Harris in the race to reach 270 electoral votes, having racked up 277 according to the AP. Fox News has already declared him the victor. Russia has said that relations with the US were at a historic low, but that the Kremlin was open to dialogue and would see what would happen if Donald Trump returns to the White House in January. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov stated that he was unaware of any plans for President Vladimir Putin to congratulate Donald Trump, who has claimed victory in the elections. When asked if relations would deteriorate further if Putin refrained from congratulating Trump, Peskov replied, "It is almost impossible to worsen them further. Relations are at their historically lowest point. What happens next will depend on the next US leadership." That brings us to the end of this news bulletin. Here's what we have been covering. Israeli airstrikes hit Beirut's southern suburbs. Hundreds of protesters gather in occupied Jerusalem after Prime Minister Netanyahu dismissed the Israeli defense minister. Donald Trump wins the 2024 U.S. presidential contest.
Montana, Nevada, Texas, Ohio, Michigan.
Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at Q News EGY to stay informed. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.